looks like most of the snow is gone everywhere, huh? You wouldn't even know we had like a snowstorm per se. And what's going on today? I was reading this article today, which always gets me to think. Apparently it dealt with someone who really hates drones for hiking, for example. And again, you could use it in such a good way, for example, but it's the entitlement that always gets me to wonder. So this person here writes, "No, you shouldn't take your drone hiking." Just think of what the person writes here. It says, "Last summer, my boyfriend and I were out on a long bike ride. It was a really hot day, so when we got to the top of the hill, we decided to cool off in a nearby waterfall where we often do a spot of wild swimming. Because it was a spontaneous decision, we weren't carrying our bathing suits, but no big deal. There was no one around and you can see incoming hikers coming a long way off from that spot. So apparently after their naked swim, they got out to dry and all of a sudden they heard a buzzing sound, which obviously was a drone, I suppose. And it was kind of interesting too because considering they were swimming there naked per se when they shouldn't, they kind of in a way joked, okay, well you can't really say much, for example, if they got caught on footage or something like that, because you shouldn't be doing that anyways. But afterwards, I guess what they do try to do is say, oh, you should still, I guess, get rid of this stuff because it's quote annoying and all that. Because it says here, because let's face it, drones have become a super annoying aspect of spending time outdoors in recent years, haven't they? I mean, I do get why you want to catch aerial images of geysers and mountain lions that you'd never otherwise be able to see from that angle and potentially view places you can't access on foot. But for those of us that are on foot, your drone totally ruins our time in our hiking boots. And the person continues saying here, I understand that you honestly may never have considered that your drone impacts anyone else. After all, you're probably just hanging out on your own, staring at the screen on the console, barely aware of the existence of humans, never mind the beauty that surrounds you. So for all of those who haven't given it a moment's of thought, here's why you shouldn't take your drone hiking. Okay, it's so weird when you think about this because in terms of not considering other people and all that, I mean in general, let's just say if I'm hiking, why would I want to see you naked and stuff like that? Wouldn't that be the same thing? Or at the same time, if you say in terms of disrupting, let's say other people's experience, I could argue the other way around where let's just say someone's hiking by themselves, just capturing footage and so forth. You being naked there is ruining their experience kind of thing, correct? I mean, can it be the same thing? I would ask too. Do you think you, as a hiker, like this person, you hike or like say walk more than a person like me and I fly a quote drone? I know for myself, it seems like most people don't walk as much as I do, for example, or hike as much, so you can't basically just classify everyone in the same way. Ultimately, it's just a tool. So the person's first argument saying it's obnoxious and creepy. Not only is the weird little high-pitched whine your drone makes irritating, no one can really relax when there's a drone hovering overhead and we come out here to relax and get away from technology. And they also say, for example, well, it gives the impression that you're spying on strangers and all that. I mean, let's think of it in a different way. And it's happened before for myself. I went hiking with a group of people and I used the drone to capture the experience, for example, and people loved it. They were waving at the drone and all that, so amazed by the tech when initially people were ignorant about it, thinking like, oh no, this thing's gonna crash and all that. But after I did it, they're like, when's the next time you can come and do it again? So there's different types of people who may use it. You can't say they were terrified about it, they loved it, for example. I mean, you could argue if you're hiking in a trail, they fly it right in front of your face and all that, then that's a little different. But there's different people in the world who use it in a different way, not just you. People who want to go up there swimming naked, for example. I mean, you have to think of everyone, in my opinion. Now, these 2 points actually made me think of another story before because this person's other argument is, quote, it disturbs wildlife. Now, I shouldn't have to go through all that because, as you know, there were plenty of times where it's been proven they get used to it, for example. But this thing saying here on why people should never, I guess, fly drones around, let's just say, areas to capture, I don't know, wildlife and so forth, if you're doing it safe, it says, someone else has already done it better than you. Speaking of David Attenborough, though you might be able to get some really cool wildlife footage using your drone on a hike, there's always someone out there that's already captured it better than you. So they're going through all this stuff on how you think you got a good shot and so forth, but I guess a bigger production or something like that did it better. It says, sure, your aerial footage of Mount Everest might buy you some new followers on Instagram, but you know who else has already done that better than you? National Geographic. Maybe just let the professionals wow us with their amazing videography and you go ahead and enjoy your nature with your eyes. Again, this type of person. And the reason why I thought of this story was recently here in Canada, somebody used their drone and captured this amazing footage of wildlife. Like it says here, drone captures an incredible moment. New Brunswick moose sheds both antlers. I mean, to me, this was incredible. You can see this crystal clear, I guess, video of this moose shedding both of its antlers and stuff like that. Even he was amazed. People were saying this is like the lottery ticket of wildlife capture. So imagine if you were like this person here saying, oh, no, you should never do it. Leave it to National Geographic and so forth. Why? The person's doing it safe, for example, capturing wildlife and so forth, and people have never seen this before, correct? So kind of crazy again when you think of these people. It's more like they are all for themselves only, and using the most ridiculous reasons to try to stop people from doing it if they're doing nothing wrong, in my opinion. And then they go to other things, for example, saying like it can disrupt firefighting efforts, talking about, for example, I guess, flying a drone around an area where there's a huge wildfire and so forth. I mean, that's a completely different topic we're talking about now, isn't it? I mean, you're talking about someone flying a drone around, I don't know, a trail or something like that just to capture scenery. And now you're talking about like what? A fire? What's next? Are you gonna tell me, for example, you shouldn't drive a car at all because there's emergency vehicles that go past the road every day? Stand aside, let the professionals drive the car. How ridiculous would that be, correct? And the other one saying like, it may be illegal. Talking about how, for example, in certain places, you're not allowed to fly here and there. Because saying with the points, it may be illegal and so forth. I don't know, in her area, is it illegal for you to go naked in a public place, for example, and take your shower, bath, or whatever in the waterfall? I don't know, is it? Maybe some people have different rules and so forth, but that doesn't make sense to me where someone's doing something they know they quote shouldn't be doing at all, but they did it anyways. But it's just so crazy for me to think about where there's so many people like this where they only think about themselves all the time. And again, if it came to things like over the top regulations, you can't fly this and that over here, it doesn't even have anything to do with safety. It's more about people just wanting to restrict everyone else because they want the world to only be for them in many ways. I personally think it's ridiculous. And I read this, which was interesting to think about, where in the past couple of years, a lot of people were demanding, for example, you have to wear a mask indoors. But I actually read like here, there were a lot of businesses that didn't like it because crime increased where the mask covered people's faces. So it's kind of interesting reading this here, where apparently in New York, they're telling people remove it. It says New York mayor says retailers must force shoppers to remove masks when entering stores to prevent crime. It's not about being fearful of a pandemic. This NYC mayor Eric Adams said face masks obstruct stores from identifying potential shoplifters and saying do not allow people to enter the store without taking off their mask, he told a local radio station. Adams' comments come as retailers have sounded the alarms about the above average theft rates. So that's kind of interesting to think about. Again, just a couple of years ago, people were demanding it, whereas now they're saying, nope, take it off. So it's kind of interesting to see how this will turn out in that regards. Because they talk about how a lot of stores, for example, even Walmarts are closing down because there's just way too much theft. It says missing inventory also reduced Target's gross margin by more than $400 million in fall 2022. The theft issue has ballooned into a $94.5 billion problem for the retail industry, according to a 2022 study conducted by the National Retail Federation. Again, it'll be interesting to see how this all pans out. Alright, see you guys later.